When concerning just about any story, the narrative will usually go out of its way to make a clear distinction as to who the protagonist and antagonists are, something I believe anime does exceedingly well, blessing us with some of the most likable and inspiring heroes of all time, as well as some of the darkest and most malicious villains straight from the pits of hell. Occasionally, however, a character will throw a wrench into the works and walk the line dividing good and evil, having either good intentions but misguided ideals, acting the way they are for the sake of the greater good, or committing questionable deeds due to an event in their backstory the audience can sympathize with. And this type of person is known as the anti-hero. Anti-heroes in anime go together like Overwatch and stupid memes. These types of vigilantes pop up constantly throughout this medium, and as the industry evolves and new stories are being told, they forever make audiences question our morals, our ethics, what is truly right or wrong, whether or not we should be for or against them, as well as the question that has plagued humanity since the beginning of time. Who is the best girl? Well, I for one can't answer that question. But if you were to ask me what I believe to be the best anti-heroes in anime, well, why else would you be watching this video? So join me everyone, as it's time to witness the troubled souls that can go in either direction, as I count down my top 10 anime anti-heroes. Naturally, this list is purely my opinion, and considering all the different anime and anti-heroes out there, chances are some of your favourites won't be on here, so you have every right to disagree. To make things fairer, I'm only including one anti-hero per anime, and I'm ranking them on how well they fit the bill of the anti-hero from my perspective, in addition to how much I like these characters. And with all that cleared up, what say we take a look at the beings that cause me to contemplate whether or not these moral conundrums are doing the right thing. And with the 10 characters I've got lined up for this countdown, it might just be the question I'll never find the answer to. Shinya Kogami, Psychopaths. When you live in a society that determines what you're capable of achieving in life and the chance to live purely based on your mental state, I don't think leaning more towards the red area is the best idea in the world. But Kogami found a way to make it work, as I saw his role of the anti-hero to be based more around how his environment prematurely judges both his actions and his psyche, making for quite the unique spin on the trope in my opinion, as well as one of the coolest anime characters in recent memory. So despite his limitations in life, I'd say he's done well for himself. In the world of Psychopaths, humans' brainwaves are scanned and measured against the universal Sibley system, which determines whether they're a perfectly fine citizen, a threat to society, or a latent criminal, with Kogami being the latter. With a crime coefficient on the border of a serious threat, Kogami walks a wafer-thin line between life and death throughout the series. As despite his job as an enforcer and a man of the law, Kogami uses very unorthodox methods to solve his cases, which are often seen as immoral and appalling to his superiors and his fellow work colleagues. While he is quite the wild card, Kogami is straight up amazing at his job, and personally, I think he does more good than bad, as well as one of the few people who see the flaws in society and the Sibley system, making him the outsider among the cast, as well as possibly the most human character in the series, which I find fascinating. Suddenly the future doesn't look so bright. Kogami is quite the reserved character and likes to keep to himself. After all, no one in anime becomes a true badass by being a loudmouth.
Just who the hell do you think I am, fuzzball?
Though of course there are exceptions. However, I'll give the guy some credit as he's not above making jokes or teasing others, so at the very least he's not a stick in the mud, and there are times where Kogami's way of thinking and actions are essential to saving the day. Just look at what happened with Makishima, a person who can exploit the Sibley system and is otherwise above the law that only Kogami can understand and confront, and yet somehow he's the one that gets punished for it? And the justice system in this world is bullshit! I would define the role of the anti-hero to be someone whose actions are a combination of what is considered right and wrong in the world. But when that world's perspective has become so twisted, narrow-minded and biased, there isn't much freedom to decide which path you choose. However, Kogami is more than willing to take that risk and see society for what it really is, and how the law cannot protect people. Satsuki Kiryuin, Kill la Kill. High school and anime are so closely tied together you couldn't separate them with the swing of the scissor blade, especially if Lady Satsuki is the one in charge, as this student council president will go to any and all lengths to achieve her goals regardless of the pain and suffering those beneath her must endure. But before jumping to any conclusions, her reasons for doing so are a lot more noble than you may think, showing that there is method to her madness and the complete confidence she has in her abilities and her body. After all, she's not shy about bearing her assets in front of her peers. I guess the term modesty doesn't exist in this world, because I can safely say that no one knows the meaning of the word. Because of her position within this prestigious academy, it's safe to assume Lady Satsuki has a substantial amount of authority over the students. Well, substantial is a bit of an understatement. I think the term unlimited power better fits her job description. Lady Satsuki rules over Hinoji Academy with an iron fist, and her word is law. Whatever she says goes, her way of life is paramount, making it so that anyone who disagrees will be subject to constant abuse and torment without any form of mercy. Make your own jokes, people, I'm not going to cross that bridge. Well, she certainly doesn't seem like the nicest of people, but that's just the start, as there is no limit to how cold, cruel, merciless, manipulative, and cunning she can be. But god damn does she have a presence like no one else, and when she needs to take matters into her own hands, let's just say that those who go against her are going to spend a very long time in the nurse's office. Despite coming off as a maniacal bitch, I can't help but love just how cool and commanding Satsuki is, and the way she simply doesn't give a shit about what others think. I mean, she's not the least bit shy about getting her tits out if necessary, as her resolve is stronger than steel and nothing can stand in her way. However, what I find most shocking is that once a certain plot twist happens that I will not spoil, suddenly Satsuki's actions all this time aren't nearly as malevolent as they seem to me, not to mention those who are closest to her and have earned her respect. I thought she was surprisingly nice to, and shows them a significant amount of gratitude and admiration. So even though on the surface, she's the type of person I would not touch with a galaxy-sized drill, fight the power! Once her core is exposed, then I see her for the spectacle that she really is, and she undoubtedly is not a pig in human clothing. Hey, darker than black. Superpowers and superheroes are an interesting concept within anime, as often I perceive this medium to demonstrate the best aspects this genre has to offer, or do a unique spin on the status quo, with Darker Than Black being a more dystopian example of this idea, as well as the most oxymoronic title for such a great anime, with our main man Haze being the biggest moral conundrum of all. As if starring in one of my favourite anime wasn't enough, Haze, in my opinion, is one of the coolest and downright badass motherfuckers in all of anime, kicking all kinds of ass, taking no prisoners, yet still having a warm heart and soft smile underneath that mask, making it so that I can't help but love this guy, and then 5 minutes later question whether or not I should. At a first glance, I simply couldn't think of Haze as the anti-hero type. After all, I thought he was a very kind-hearted and helpful young man, though admittedly quite introverted, and looks like he doesn't have it in him to hurt a fly. Well, while it seemed that way on the surface, in reality, he's a cold-blooded killer working for the Syndicate to take down whichever contractor is his next target, going by the alias of the Black Reaper. Ooh, feel that itch! This is when Haze shows his true colours, being dark, mysterious, stealthy, highly intelligent, extremely dangerous, and a stare that can pierce your soul. Not to mention an expert at what he does and one of the most dangerous contractors in the series, which says a lot considering this universe has beings with the abilities like cryokinesis, body swapping, organ rupturing, and spontaneous combustion. Jeez, I thought My Hero Academia would end a bit happier than this. Throughout the series, the Black Reaper is feared by all and bested by none, but in spite of this, there were times where his emotions got the better of him and acted much more sympathetically to both his colleagues and his targets, sometimes going quite far to do good for others with no sense of personal gain, so I can see the signs of a good man underneath that bleak exterior. When you're the best at what you do, and what you do isn't pretty, it's no surprise that people may question whether or not you're on their side, and Haze is a true professional of his craft, because everything he does and the result of his actions made him a very likeable and at the same time very sinister character to me. But if you're wondering why I didn't mention anything about Haze from the second season, well, if you've seen the second season, then you know why. Char Aznable, Mobile Suit Gundam. The Gundam franchise has been around for nearly 50 years, and the series has a habit of repeating storylines, themes, designs, and most notably, characters. While in some cases this works, and in others it doesn't, one type of recurring character that I will gladly welcome in any Gundam series is the masked anti-hero, all of which stem from the original Red Comet himself. Char Aznable stands as a testament to how timeless the world of Gundam is, and from my perspective, the most morally ambiguous character of an already morally ambiguous universe, constantly going back and forth between an enemy and an ally, performing countless feats of both good and evil, appearing often during the Universal Century timeline, as well as an all-around great character and a classic anti-hero who's left behind one hell of a legacy. I always found Char to be a very fascinating entity due to how the different Gundam series sometimes focus on either the Earth Federation or Zeon, so I had a tendency of seeing him from a variety of perspectives. Initially, I viewed him to be the bad guy and one of the Earth Federation's biggest threats, Later on, he becomes the one I'm rooting for and a huge asset to the team. But no matter what side he's on, Char is such a cool and charismatic guy whose presence alone leaves an impact on me, in addition to his skills in a mobile suit, so I'm delighted to see him pop up whenever possible, and apparently so did everyone else. Char, like any anti-hero, is quite the puzzle piece to fit into the morality spectrum, as he's first seen as a supporter of Zeon and an enemy of the Earth Federation, though he's not above betraying his allies and won't hesitate to manipulate whoever need be. Later down the line and during the events of Zeta, we get to see a much lighter side of Char, who is now a mentor figure to a lot of the younger pilots and even goes so far as to fight against Zeon and their ideologies, displaying how Char is neither completely good or evil, which I think is a wonderful fit for the themes of Gundam, and as the franchise still goes strong to this day, I believe that the Red Comet won't be burning up anytime soon. Vegeta, Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is a series I and many others love dearly for a multitude of reasons, most of them nostalgic. But over time, I've become very aware of its flaws and how it really isn't as great as I remembered it. That being said, there are still many elements I think hold up unexpectedly well, and Vegeta is one of them. Undeniably one of the most iconic anti-heroes in anime, Vegeta is a classic among classics and one of my favourite characters in the Dragon Ball universe. Going from a malicious and cruel planet-destroying tyrant to a protector of the Earth, an enemy that became a friend, a husband, and a father, yet still retaining that dark edge that remains in the back of his mind. I guess some people simply can't kick the habit. Starring as, in my opinion, the first true villain of the Z series, Vegeta the Prince of Saiyans made his debut as an arrogant, stubborn, power-hungry, sadistic, overbearing adversary. And nowadays, not much has changed, but he's undoubtedly seen the light, so to speak, and has transformed from one of the Earth's biggest threats to one of its strongest guardians. During the very long tale of Dragon Ball Z, we discovered that Vegeta was at the mercy of the Overlord Frieza, and his ultimate goal was to defeat him and rule instead. But because of his encounters with Goku and the others, Vegeta slowly but surely saw the error of his ways and found another reason to live outside of becoming the strongest in the universe, though that's still a big deal for him, and even after all this time, some of his nastier habits have a tendency to get the better of him at the worst possible times. His revolution from Destroyer to Defender makes for some of the best moments of Dragon Ball Z, in addition to being one of my favourite redemption arcs in fiction, but no matter how hard he tries, he simply cannot change who he is deep down. But that's not always a bad thing, and I doubt Vegeta would be one of the most loved characters in anime if he became a goody two-shoes, and I can say the same for Piccolo too, though I slightly prefer his Royal Highness. Dragon Ball Z will go down in history as one of the most important anime and manga of all time, and among many of its achievements, you will find the name Vegeta, a proud Saiyan prince. Scar, Full Metal Alchemist. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, though personally I prefer a hot meal this time of year. Nonetheless, this warrior from Ishval makes sure to serve up his revenge at sub-zero temperatures, as for quite some time I considered him to be one of the main antagonists and a huge threat to both the Elric brothers and the State Alchemists. But once his background was revealed and the atrocities that his people experienced, sometimes I find myself rooting for this agent of God when he exacts justice upon those dogs of the military, making for a considerably dark anti-hero and the result of what bloodshed and oppression will do to people. It's as they say, war has no winners, only losers. Scar's first appearance in the story of Full Metal Alchemist certainly speaks fathoms about his character, as he enters the scene killing a state alchemist in cold blood, and these people are no pushovers, which demonstrates just how dangerous he is, something the Elric brothers experienced firsthand, if you know what I mean. Now, I imagine most of us initially labelled him to be the villain, based on that first impression. However, life is never that straightforward, and as the plot progresses, we learn about the Ishvalan civil war and how his people were brutally massacred by the military, some of which revelled in their work and delighted in what they did, making it so that while I do think his actions are wrong, I understand completely why he would behave this way. From there, the events keep on spiraling out of control, what with his connection to Winry's parents, his relationship with Mei, learning the truth about how the war started, joining the fight against the homunculus. So much about Scar is brought to light that I find myself constantly flip-flopping between whether to love or hate this man. The series really does raise a lot of good questions. In regards to the manslaughtering monk, the scars that the war left him run deep, as his lust for vengeance has consumed his mind and he will not think twice about taking the life of those he set out to condemn, which naturally made him a very cold, stern, and just downright moody person. However, he's not above showing people mercy, and he tends to harbour no hatred towards anyone that isn't a dog of the military, so at least he doesn't kill indiscriminately, and by the end he fights against a common enemy. In both versions of the adaptation, Scar is simultaneously a tragic and terrifying character who is a victim of the horrors of war, and those horrors later resurface to make one of my favourite anti-heroes in anime. And for those unlucky enough to run into this man, well, all I can say is pick a god and pray. Kiritsugu Emiya, Fate Zero. Being a hero is to become someone who is noble, the person everyone wants to be and strives to emulate, or at least that's what people want to believe. In reality, this kind of role comes with many complications, as you simply cannot save everyone or have the moral high ground all the time, and Kiritsugu Emiya knows this all too well. This is a man well aware that the idea of a true hero simply cannot be done, and is nothing more than childish fantasy, with his actions making that abundantly clear. Consequentially, I consider him to be one of the more tragic and realistic anti-heroes that acts as a harsh reminder of what reality can do to people. Oh come on man, I watch anime to escape from reality. Don't you insult me with your contemporary themes and actually make me use my brain. As the representative of the Ainsband family during the 4th Holy Grail War, Kiritsugu Emiya works as a Magus killer, and goddamn does he know his craft. This man is incredibly effective and efficient at dispatching all kinds of mages and exploiting the weaknesses of several servants. Even some of the most prestigious households can't hold a candle to this guy, and he will gladly use some of the dirtiest tricks in the book to achieve victory. He even makes bullets out of his own ribs, which is badass.
And cost effective.
While everyone is trying to eradicate each other in Fate Zero, Kiritsugu is far more active about it and doesn't exactly keep to the honor system, making for a character who I will admit is slightly unethical, but at the same time there is logic to his methods, and outside of his constantly rising body count, he seems like a nice guy, very cool, good looking, mysterious, both a husband and father, and a nice kid as well, until tragedy struck, plus his ideals are something I can get behind. At present, I'd argue this makes him quite the competent anti-hero, but it's his relationship with Saber which really drives it home for me, as she's pretty much the hero of the Fate franchise and is bound by honor, living by the code of chivalry and respecting her opponents, which though admirable, is ultimately fruitless and childish in this type of story, and often Kiritsugu's actions will cause the two to butt heads, showing the difference between the type of hero we want to be and the type of hero we're most likely to be. The principles of a hero is something that inspires many people to do great things and become a symbol of hope. However, life has different plans for most of us, and our philosophies are quickly shut down, with Kiritsugu Emiya being the one to pull the trigger. Alucard, Hellsing Ultimate. The Legend of Dracula is a story that has been told many times. Some versions show him at his best and most sophisticated, others at his worst and most monstrous, but the Hellsing version is what I feel to be a perfect combination of both. The great vampire Alucard is such a suave and slick creature of the night that I fell in love with him the moment I saw those blood-tinted glasses and that sadistic grin. But once all that sadism comes out in full force, the shit he does will make your jaw and your bladder drop, as the sheer brutality of this beast is something even I had a hard time stomaching, and really made me wonder if he's the quote-unquote good guy, since he is fighting, well, Nazis. Or is he nothing but a monster? Though in some circles, he's known as a fuck-mothering vampire. He killed a lot of people to get that title, so he deserves to be called such. Seeing how Alucard is the lord of all vampires, his power goes beyond Meta Knight levels of god tier. This frightening fiend is capable of just about anything and everything. Having so many powers and abilities at his disposal, I don't think even he knows what to do with them. Heck, he's so strong that he lets his opponents think they have the upper hand and has to purposely restrain himself just to give them a chance. And yet he's still able to kick all kinds of ass like there's no tomorrow, with his love for guns making each bullet he fires a sea of blood and bones. So if it wasn't obvious by now, Alucard is pretty much invincible, and trust me, he knows it. The ultimate weapon of the Hellsing organization makes sure that all of his enemies' deaths are as painful as possible. They can beg, they can grovel, they can plead, they can try and talk their way out of it, but Alucard simply doesn't give a shit and will devour all who stand in his way, without a care in the world as to who he puts a hole in. It could be an enemy, an ally, an old friend, a blonde-haired police girl with big titties. No one is safe from this madman. And while I find his actions to be very extreme, putting it lightly, he gets the job done better than anyone else, and bearing in mind who he's fighting against, I can safely say he's the lesser of two evils. So whenever I see him rip whatever poor soul to pieces and leave behind nothing but a bloody mess, you'll get no complaints from me. Guts, Berserk. Usually fictional worlds will make it clear what is considered ethically pleasing so that the audience can easily identify who is the hero and the villain. However, in a world as twisted, horrible, and screwed up as Berserk, I question whether or not there are any heroes in this cesspit of violence and filth. This is where Guts comes in, as admittedly he does do some truly awful deeds, and like all badasses, solves most of his problems by carving his enemies a new one. Over time, however, he has grown into a significantly selfless character, especially in the context of this universe, and the only one with the guts to stand up against the greatest evils to walk the earth, making him, in my opinion, one of the best written anti-heroes in anime and manga. Plus, he's the coolest motherfucker ever, and the one true black swordsman. Don't kid yourself, Kirito. You haven't got shit on this guy. Saying Guts has had a hard life is like saying the end of Evangelion was fucked up. Right from the moment of his birth, Guts had it rough, as his childhood was pretty much physical and mental abuse, molding him into a very gruff and antisocial person who didn't have time for friends or conversations, preferring to let his sword do the talking, and that thing is in no way a silent voice. There's a reason Guts earned the title of the Black Swordsman, as his skills with the blade are greater than any other human in this world, and he has accomplished feats no man could ever dream of, slaying God knows how many soldiers and even going toe-to-toe against some of the strongest monsters from the pits of hell, and he's got the scars to prove it. Even when rendered in ugly CG, he's still awesome, which says a lot when everyone else looks so... Akin to Vegeta, during the story of Berserk, Guts is forever a very stern and gruff person, and on occasion he commits atrocities even I have to shake my head at. However, his time with Griffith and the Band of the Hawks slowly helped him warm up to others and become a leader figure to a lot of them, as well as even fall in love. In fact, after the eclipse happened and everything literally goes to shit, he's still much more calm and open to the idea of companionship compared to when he started out. So despite going through hell and back, the time spent in the Golden Age arc did change him for the better, and I'd say he does far more good than bad, though the bloodlust remains deep down in his core, like a rabid dog waiting to be let off its leash. So although life for Guts seems to get worse before it gets better, he remains the one who can save this world, no matter what it takes to do so. Lelouch v Britannia, Code Geass. My god, does this boy know what it takes to be an anti-hero? With an anime like Code Geass that's all about war, terrorism, rebellion, betrayal, oppression, and embarrassing amounts of fan service, it's only natural that the main character will reflect both the light and the dark, and Lelouch absolutely embraces the best of both worlds. From start to finish, Lelouch's actions and motives are an endless inquiry of ethics that have serious repercussions, causing me to frequently ask myself if he truly is a hero or a villain, and if that doesn't scream anti-hero, then I don't know what does. From the beginning, Code Geass made it clear that one day Lelouch will obliterate Britannia, and once he meets the mysterious girl C2 who grants him the power of Geass, he stays true to his word and strives to make it happen by becoming the masked vigilante and leader of the rebellion Zero. Though he is one of many royal children, Lelouch didn't exactly have the happiest time growing up. After all, he lost his mother, his sister became both blind and paralyzed, and to top it all off, he was banished from his home and disowned from the family. And do you know what the absolute worst part is? The fact that this is his best friend. Oh god, that has got to be the worst form of punishment I can think of.
Leo's a bitch!
All of this combined with what the Britannian Empire did to Japan and its people, Lelouch's goal of overthrowing them and creating a safe world for his sister doesn't seem like such a bad thing to me. But as expected, life isn't so black and white. Even with the knowledge that he's fighting for a race of people who are oppressed and overthrown, the show makes it clear that both sides have those who are kind-hearted and innocent in all of this, as well as the worst kinds of evil. So at the end of the day, what Lelouch does and who they affect are not a simple case of right or wrong. Lelouch himself is also a mixed bag of principles, as I'm sure most people are aware of how similar he is to a certain other god-complex pretty boy, and keeping in line with Light Yagami, Lelouch is extremely manipulative and cunning, using people as pawns whenever need be, and an expert tactician and strategist, though sometimes his emotions get the better of him and cause him to make very rash decisions. I guess child geniuses don't like it when things don't go their way. Fucking babies. I won't deny the fact that on occasion Lelouch practically screams evil, especially when parading around as Zero, but whenever he's able to simply chill out and be a normal teenager, I think Lelouch is a real sweetheart and a wonderful big brother to Nunnally. Also, he's not above condoning the actions of those who seek to harm the innocent or threaten the lives of those closest to him, and this in my opinion makes for one of the biggest factors that cements Lelouch as my favourite anti-hero, his sense of remorse. There are many times in Code Geass where Lelouch doesn't get his way or events have consequences he didn't foresee, and despite saying how much the results matter and not the methods, these repercussions have a massive bearing on his conscience, the best example I can think of being his relationship with Shirley. Now early on it's made clear that Shirley has a thing for our little Lulu, and they're good friends. However, specific moments in the story cause her serious emotional pain and torment because of him, and he has a tremendous mental breakdown as a result, causing him to try and do whatever he can to take away her pain, even if he has to suffer dearly for it. Many instances involving these two lovebirds show that Lelouch truly cares for Shirley and regrets what he did, as he has remorse for his actions. Her pain is his pain. He's human and must live with the sorrow that he has caused others for the sake of creating a better world. And that to me is the perfect definition of an anti-hero. I believe anime will always be a haven for anti-heroes to thrive, and there is no shortage of great ones out there. But in my opinion, Lelouch v Britannia is the one who encompasses both the light and the dark better than anyone else, which is why he takes the #1 spot as my favourite anime anti-hero. This has been Blazing Knight. I wish you all a great night, take care, and anime will forever show us what it means to be the best kind of hero and the worst kind of villain, in addition to making it clear that sometimes people can be both, along with many shining examples of what a true anti-hero should be. Thank you all for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments, and what are some of your favourite anti-heroes in anime and why, as well as what you thought of my choices, and if there's anything significant about these bad boys that I missed out. Once again, thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to give this video a like, as it really helps out the channel and it means a lot to me, and also consider subscribing if you like these types of videos and want to see more. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and on Amino if you want to keep updated with what I'm doing, or just have a friendly chat with me, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.